Then I wouldn't have to put up with my father's insane behavior. The first day on the job, I realized my hopes were in vain. Dad was in full command mode, barking orders, nitpicking every detail, and making it clear to everyone that he expected nothing but perfection from his son.
Ryan, that report was due 5 minutes ago. Get it on my desk, now.
I sprinted to his office, my heart pounding, and handed him the report I'd been working on since I arrived that morning. He didn't even look at it. He just tossed it aside and fixed me with his usual glare.
This is barely adequate. If you're planning on working here, you better get your act together. I won't tolerate sloppiness.
Yes, sir. That was my life for the next few months. For as long as I can remember, my father, Carl, ran our home like a military barracks, and I was the newest recruit. You see, my mom passed away while giving birth to me, so my dad wanted me to be strong and raised me with an iron fist. He was always strict, always demanding, and never satisfied with anything I did. He liked things done a certain way, his way, and I was expected to fall in line. By the time I was 17, he had gotten me an internship at his company. My dad was one of the managers at Stanton Enterprises, and it wasn't like I'd been given much of a choice.
It's time you learned what real work is. I'm not raising a lazy freeloader.
He screamed as he was looming over me like a drill sergeant. I wasn't exactly thrilled, but I figured that if I could stick it out for a while, I'd learn something useful and maybe even save up a bit of money. Besides, it might give me a chance to show him that I wasn't a failure. That maybe, for once, I'd be good enough. Not to mention, if I saved up enough, then maybe I could move out and get my own place. Then I wouldn't have to put up with my father's insane behavior. The first day on the job, I realized my hopes were in vain. Dad was in full command mode, barking orders, nitpicking every detail, and making it clear to everyone that he expected nothing but perfection from his son.
Ryan, that report was due 5 minutes ago. Get it on my desk, now.
I sprinted to his office, my heart pounding, and handed him the report I'd been working on since I arrived that morning. He didn't even look at it. He just tossed it aside and fixed me with his usual glare.
This is barely adequate. If you're planning on working here, you better get your act together. I won't tolerate sloppiness.
Yes, sir. That was my life for the next few months. Dad treated me like some kind of live-in errand boy. Every day was a barrage of criticism, and he didn't hold back. He assigned me the hardest tasks, piled on the hours, and made sure I never had a minute to catch my breath. I couldn't complain to anyone. It was just how things were. I didn't have friends to back me up or anyone to vent to. I just had to suck it up and keep going. One morning, as I walked to work, I saw a woman being attacked by a mugger. She was middle-aged, dressed in a professional suit, and looked completely defenseless as the man grabbed her purse and tried to shove her to the ground. Without thinking, I rushed forward.
Hey, leave her alone!
The mugger looked up, startled, and then made a run for it, dragging the purse along with him. I bolted after him, my heart pounding with adrenaline. When I was close enough, I lunged, tackling him to the ground. He struggled, but I held on, and soon a few bystanders rushed over to help. Within minutes, we had him pinned, and someone called the cops. The woman stood nearby, clutching her arms, her face pale. I helped her back to her feet as the police arrived, and she looked at me with wide eyes.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You didn't have to do that.
Are you okay?
I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't been there. Thank you for recovering my purse.
You're very welcome. I'm sorry to do this, but I have to go. I'm late for work.
I understand. Thank you again. Truly.
I didn't think much more of it as I ran toward the office, but as soon as I walked through the doors, I knew I was in trouble. Dad was waiting for me, his arms crossed and his face red with fury.
Where the hell have you been?
I was helping someone. A woman was being mugged, and I stopped to help her.
I don't want to hear your excuses. You're late, and I can't have that kind of irresponsibility in my office. You're fired, Ryan.
Fired? Are you serious? I'm only a few minutes late, and it was for a very good reason.
You're damn right I am. Now get out. Go home and think about how you failed yet again. I am so disappointed in you.
I stood there, numb, as he turned and walked away. It shouldn't have surprised me, but it still hurt. I'd thought, just maybe, that he'd see what I'd done as something good. but all he saw was an opportunity to punish me. He wouldn't even let me explain why I was late. I didn't think he would care, but there was a chance he would at least give me a warning instead of outright firing me. Days later, I decided that it would be best for me to move out. I had worked enough overtime thanks to my dad to afford a place of my own. I was in the middle of packing up my things when there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find the woman I'd helped standing on my doorstep, holding a small bouquet of flowers.
Hello, Ryan. Do you remember me?
Yes, of course. Are you all right? I didn't expect to see you again. Also, how on earth did you know where I lived?
I'm more than all right, thanks to you. I recognized the company logo on your shirt when you rescued me, so I went to your office to thank you, but I heard you were let go.
Yeah, my dad. He's my boss. Well, actually, he used to be my boss. He didn't take it well that I was a little bit late and wouldn't even listen to the reason why I was late.
Is your dad Carl Smith?
Yeah. Yes, that's him.
Yeah, I've heard of him. You see, I'm Emily Stanton, wife of Robert Stanton, the CEO of Stanton Enterprises. I've heard how difficult he can be.
My jaw dropped. I'd heard the name Stanton all my life, of course, but I'd had no idea I'd saved her that day. I didn't know.
Ryan, I can't let your kindness go unrewarded. You risked so much for me. It was the least I could do to help you. I told my husband what happened, and he was, well, let's just say he was not pleased with Carl's decision. How would you feel about returning to work? This time with a promotion.
For real? A promotion?
Yes, Robert believes in rewarding integrity. He'd like to offer you a management position in the same department. You'd be in charge of overseeing your former team, including your father.
I could hardly believe what I was hearing. All my life, I'd been under my father's thumb, working myself to the bone to please him. And now, thanks to Emily, I had a chance to change things. I accepted, of course. How could I not? She shook my hand, congratulated me, and promised to see me in the office soon. I decided that I would hold off with moving out until I felt secure in this new position. The next day, when I walked into my office, I saw my father right away. The look on my father's face when I walked back into the office a few days later was priceless. He didn't know what had happened, only that he'd been called into the conference room for a meeting with the new manager since he had been demoted.
Ryan, what are you doing here? I fired you. If you think you can beg to get your job back, you could not be more wrong.
I wouldn't beg you for my old job, especially since Mr. Stanton rehired me. I'm your new manager, Dad. Isn't that something? His face turned red, but he didn't say a word. I could see the confusion in his eyes, the anger he was trying to contain. For the first time, I held the power, and he couldn't do a thing about it. Once I was made a manager, the first thing I did was pack my things and rent a small house far away from my dad. Over the next few weeks, I gave him a taste of his own medicine. I assigned him the toughest projects, ones that required late nights and early mornings. I'd call him into my office at random hours, demanding updates, pushing him harder than he'd ever pushed me.
Are you seriously calling me in here for this? This is such a waste of time.
I'm just making sure you're pulling your weight. Can't have slackers around here, can we? Is that understood?
Yes, sir, it's understood.
It wasn't just about revenge, not really. It was about showing him what it felt like to be treated like a machine, to be pushed past the breaking point, and then pushed even harder. I wanted him to see what he'd done to me all those years, to feel it for himself. A few months after moving out, I saw my dad in the break room. He looked older, more worn down than I'd ever seen him. I almost felt sorry for him, but then I remembered all the years he'd treated me like I was nothing.
Ryan, can we talk?
About what?
I know I wasn't always fair to you. I was hard on you because I thought it would make you tougher. I didn't realize I was pushing you away.
I nodded, but I didn't say anything. I'd waited a long time to hear an apology, but now that it was here, it felt hollow. He looked back at me, his eyes tired.
I'm proud of you, even if I never said it.
Thanks. I wasn't sure if I believed him, but I didn't need his approval anymore. I'd moved on, and I'd finally built a life on my own terms. As I walked away, I felt a sense of satisfaction settle over me. I didn't know if things would ever be right between us, but I knew one thing for sure. I no longer was under his thumb, and for the first time in my life, I was in control of my life. After that, I decided that I would go a bit easier on my father. I figured I shouldn't go too easy on him, but I wouldn't overdo it either. After all, I wasn't a jerk like him. Do you think I was very harsh with my dad?